Roosters dealing with Dom Young. What's the latest with Dom and Smith's off to the Bunnies?
So Dom Young doesn't seem like he's going anywhere at the moment. I thought Trent Robinson held himself pretty well yesterday. I thought what he had to say. I think he explained it pretty well. You don't agree, Crawls?
Oh, no, I just think that, look, my question goes back to with Brandon. First up, Brandon. When Brandon went to the Roosters, he had the Storm had tabled an offer. I think the Gold Coast were chasing him. He visited the Dolphins. He went to the Cowboys. It wasn't as if he wasn't a wanted man. And what got him over the line at the Roosters was the holier-than-thou approach that they took him out to meet the board. They took him for a round of golf. He had pizzas at Robbo's house.
They got Nick on the phone.
He was wined and dined, and Smith came out after that and he said that Robbo said, he'll make him a better man. And where I have a problem with it is that the Roosters knew what they were signing. 100%. They knew they were signing one of the game's great rogues, yes, who was a little bit of a wild child often on the field. And what is it, 2.5 years later, they've shown the door because there was a shiny new toy that came along in the form of Robson for the Cowboys. And Robbo conceded yesterday that Brandon didn't have a great start, got better last year. He's been hampered by injuries, but they didn't give him the time to come good on their side of the promise. Same with Dom Young. Now Dom Young, the Roosters didn't go and give Dom Young, what was it, $500,000 a year just to be good guys. They did it because he was playing really good football and he had so much potential at the Knights, and he came as a try-scoring machine. And I understand the fact that he's now been overtaken in the run, but again, the promises were the premierships on the horizon is what he came down for, and again, what is it, 1-2 years later, he'll end up pushing his bum back up the highway to Newcastle with his reputation in tatters. I don't believe. Look, all clubs do it. All clubs sign players, they don't succeed, they move them on. What gets me sometimes is the way that the Roosters publicly make out and publicly dine out on the fact that they can do it better than everyone else, but they have just as many failures as the other clubs.
I'm with you with the Roosters recruitment. I think it's been shocking in many respects. And I agree with Brandon Smith, and I wrote it last year. Like, the way that they flaunted his signing to everybody, but particularly because they got one up over Bennett and getting him after he'd already done the deal with Bennett at the Dolphins. And I've talked to Nick about it. It was pretty shameless the way the Roosters celebrated it. I'm not linking it to Dom Young, and I thought the way that Robbo explained it yesterday at that press conference, they weren't trying to get Dom Young out. The Knights approached them.
I know the Knights approached them.
And
right?
he's just been
I know the Knights, but do you think that the Roosters are there to try and do the Knights a favour? Like, they've got a $500,000 footballer sitting in reserve grade. Of course they want to get rid of him. And I don't think it's without reason that the Knights would be trying to make the deal go their way.
Sure, but they're not going to.
But the Knights went.
No, but the Knights have approached. Yeah, them.
I understand.
I know
that
and say all of a sudden, then they've changed and said no. Well, they said they were going to pay some money, and then changed their mind and said we're not going to pay any. And the Roosters say no. I don't know how that's a knock on the Roosters.
I'll go back. The Roosters have not made Dom Young a better footballer.
Sure.
So take all the rest of it out. That's what I look at. I look at the fact that, mate, he has not become a better footballer in their system.
That's fair enough, but let's not just, say that the Roosters have stuffed up their recruitment because they said no because we're not going to pay any money for him to play at another club.
What if he can't become a better footy player?
Dom Young?
Yeah.
Well, I think when he arrived at the Knights, mate, he was very raw. Like, he had to be a work in progress, didn't he? He had very limited football in the NRL or even in this system.
Yeah. And just going back on Brandon Smith too, I think what isn't said enough about the situation with Brandon Smith is what the Roosters have done for him off-field that isn't spoken about, that a lot of people don't know about.
There's a lot of issues there.
I'm sure that's the case.
There is a lot that the club supported him through and with that a lot of other clubs wouldn't have done. So I think that goes...
I reckon a lot of clubs... I don't believe that Melbourne wouldn't have given him support. And when they came out and said... And the quote from Robbo was along the lines that Melbourne made you a footballer... Well, not from Robbo, sorry, from Brandon Smith, saying his conversation with Robbo. they made you a footballer, we'll make you a man.
And
that's to me, that's a slap in the face to the Storm system.
No, you're right. But even when I was one of the most outspoken about the Smith signing, and I said it wasn't the right signing when they did it.
Why?
So I'm not disagreeing with you.
But why wasn't it the right signing?
Because the Roosters needed a specialist 9. They got rid of their grand final winning 9 and bought a 13, and tried to transform him into a specialist 9. He can play 9 and do it very good, but he's a better lock in my opinion.
Yeah, a ball runner.
And I didn't think the experiment was going to work, and it didn't. I copped it a bit over that, but it's just what my opinion was from the start. But it goes both ways. You're not wrong. With a lot of what you're saying, Crawls, but. They do invest a lot into their players there, and I do know a lot about the story with Brandon, so I can see both sides.